introduce ourselves. So we are Grazia Concilio.
That's me.
She's our boss. So we are a team.
That's not true.
It is lucky us. She's our boss. And we are a team of researchers from the Polytechnic of Milan. Grazia, maybe you can say something.
Okay, this is why I am there, just to speak for the introduction. Terrible role. No, come on. This is okay. We are a team of researchers at Polytechnic of Milano. We are a small piece of a very large department at Politecnico, the Department of Architecture and Urban Studies. So as you can imagine, our main contribution to this project is the, let's say, the integration of the concept design-enabled innovation within the urban perspective that for Designscapes has a special role, because Designscapes did not, let's say, consider simply and only design as a support framework, methodological and theoretical framework towards the solution of problems, but at the same time considering the scope of the call that funded our project. Let's say we also consider that the urban environment is the right one for the most effective implementation of design theories and methodologies. So somehow it's a sort of reciprocity exchange between these two, let's say, real world, the cities, and theoretical and methodological spheres that come from the design domain. So this is just to give you how to say the arguments to understand why we are there, and also you will understand maybe better, I don't know, your past experience and how much you already entered the project apart, let's say, for the call and for the fundings opportunity that it gave you. Let's say the native idea of this project, and also explains why somehow we had imagined the three calls differentiated along a sort of maturity stage, stepwise, let's say, stepwise maturity scale, let's say, because we really wanted to how to say, to share the idea that is obviously having a good idea is not enough, and knowing that innovation at the let's say epiphany scale, so when ideas are generated, whatever good they are, they may not achieve to support us in let's say targeting relevant changes in our society, is the real challenge. So it's not just that you got the good idea, is also that you need to know how to deal with mechanisms related to institutions, to other innovation initiatives, to, let's say, to the contexts where your initiative was born and can, you know, be prompted for, is needed. So this is why somehow we are here today, to present you the background, a bit of the background knowledge that was behind the whole idea, and some of the key mechanisms in this respect. So how to support an idea to mature while fighting with the context, more or less. This is okay.
Yes. So maybe I will show you what we prepared for this meeting. The idea was to let me see if I can. Do you see it full screen? Full screen?
Yes. Full screen? No.
No. Okay. Let's see if I can do it. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So we are very curious to getting to know you. We have been trying to map the initiatives of the third call in order to have an overview of where you are located, but also you had this task or this effort to make in this third round to think about a possible transfer of your project. So this idea of really dealing with the context, with the different urban contexts, got really operational in the third call, and this is something that intrigued us and was really interesting from our point of view. So we wanted to have really an overview of the 10 initiatives to get some idea of how you are dealing with this issue. Of course, unfortunately, there's only you today, so you're going to get our special attention. That's this was so like a way to break the ice and see who was here and what the kind of initiatives that were attending the meeting. We saw that there was a real orientation, or most of the initiatives are clustering in terms of type of innovation towards product or service innovation. You're as well, and there are only few initiatives that are targeting different types of innovation, like organizational innovation. So the focus is mostly on service and product. The idea of today was to introduce to the concept of the relationship between cities and innovation. What are the dynamics of this creative relationship, and introducing the transition perspective as a tool to understand how initiatives, in what kind of environment initiatives find themselves when they try to develop and they try to root themselves in a broader innovation pathway. And the last topic would have been the concept of urbanscape. This is the way we have defined the different dimensions that interrelate within a city context. I think this fourth module could be the most interesting part for talking with you today, because it might give you some a sort of framework to see at your own initiative in relation to the city, with some focuses that could help you to either exploit better the resources that a city can give you in terms of possible networks to be intercepted or possible or infrastructure, but also in terms of the relation to the city institutions and the dynamics that are present in each city. If you feel like all this information can be found in the book we wrote together also with Alicia and the other colleagues from the project, it can be downloaded for free from the Springer website, and this is that will, if you need to go in depth with some concepts, you can find them here. So I would skip the most of the theory so that we can go directly to the Urbanscape site. But the idea that Grazia was already introducing is that we look at innovation as a process of change, which is a process which is a cyclic process. It's not linear. It's a turbulent process that works on different levels, and it's networked. It means that no single initiatives can work by itself, but needs to understand itself as part of a more complex process. And the idea is that innovation produces not only new products through the development of new functions or new way of using existing technologies or functions, but also that the real what it's really interesting of processes of radical innovation is that they can also produce new meanings and values, which means deeply contributing to cultural change, or to changes that affect also not only, let's say, the market level, but also the social level. So when we look at cities, we ask ourselves, okay, what is innovation? What innovation is needed if we think about the big urban challenges that the world is facing right now? So if you think about climate change, if we think about big societal changes, what is the innovation that it's really needed to foster the path of our society towards sustainability, towards a better equality, or towards a better or more efficient democratic decision making in our cities and throughout the world. The idea is that innovation in a city needs to be sustainable, both in financial and environmental terms, but also embedded in the local culture and life, in terms of also in terms of the practices that you can find in a city. So behaviors, ways of using spaces, ways of dealing with all the different processes that can take place in a city. And it cannot be a solution looking for a problem. So the focus or the perspective is more to solve problems than to sell technology, and this is a key element of the way we are looking at innovation. So it's not innovation per se, but it's innovation that it's really targeting issues and problems that are relevant for the improvement of the well-being in our cities. So from this point of view, we have defined what we call innovation space. I don't know if you're familiar with the design-driven innovation from Roberto Berganti. Okay, he's looking at innovation from a bidimensional space, which is really interesting. It introduces the value of the design input into the innovation dynamics. What we and the value of changing meanings. So be generative in terms of also the value of the new meanings that an innovation can produce. Through Designscapes, we have tried to better understand how design agencies can further support this innovation process. So mostly Varganti looks at the expert side of design, but there is also a diffuse capability of solving problems or dealing with problems or a design solution that it's also there, that can be exploited and then can be even more generative of meanings that have a social value. So when we are thinking about innovation that it's really targeting key issues, we can't discard also this part of the possible inputs that we can bring into the design process, and that's why the element of co-creation, the element of involvement of the users, the element of dealing also with the context is so important, and so and can be an element of a further element of creative development of ideas and of initiatives. So what we try to understand is how we can use these elements to reach innovation that is radical or disruptive. That is the kind of innovation that can, if well-oriented, can be an element to produce a systemic change. That is the kind of change that we are asking for when we look at the big problems that we are trying to tackle in these times. So Grazia was also mentioning this, also the call for from Designscapes. They have been targeted to what we call the different stages of maturity of innovation. So you have the inception stage that really deals with the first ideas, the first prototyping, the first attempts, experiments. The development phase, where the idea really gets more complex and starts to become something with a more structured form. Conversion, it's the stage where an innovation starts to deal with the consolidated structures of the market, of the institutions. So it's a phase where it becomes parts of this governance of the for example, of a city. And then we have systemic change. So systemic change is the most advanced stage. It's a stage where innovation can really trigger change in a system, and a change that becomes stable. So really gets embedded in the system and produces impacts in a way that becomes visible and tangible, also affecting all the other elements of the urban system. So we can go really quick about this. There is a theory that looks at innovation in a transition perspective, which means that looks at innovation considering these three different levels at which innovation can be observed and can be can be observed in the process of developing the impacts that are expected from this kind, from the group of initiatives that act at the different levels. So this is quite complex, but in a very few world, where you are probably at the moment, it's at the niche level. The niche level is the laboratory in which ideas have the freedom to be created, and the actors have the freedom to work without constraints. They can create groups. They can exchange ideas. They can experiment. The niches are the key element of innovations environments. They can interact between themselves. They can be located, but also they can also be part of networks that not necessarily are located in the same place. But the point with niches is that they can. The great thing is that they have the freedom to experiment. The niches, when a niche matures, or it starts to produce or creating, generate an output that is valuable, it starts interacting also with the regime. The regime is the level of the institutions, so the level of norms, the level of rules that can be a constraint to the further development of an idea, or can be an enabling factor. And this is where, for example, if we think about cities, cities are not the same. So there are cities that have a regime that can be enabling, and then there can be cities that can be more difficult to deal with in terms of the relationship that can be created between the niche level and the institutional level. The institution is not necessarily the city government, could be also the different institutions that rule the city, the cultural institutions, the market institutions. So it's everything that is structured and formalized, and that can be a factor really boosting the innovative capacity of the niches, or that can be a barrier to the access towards the city's infrastructures or the city's resources. And then we have the landscape, that it is the overall layer which deals with big values, with culture, with the things that differentiate societies in terms of the values that they express, the big norms. Okay, and both the landscape and the niche can influence the regime. So the regime, it's in this pressure. In between these two levels two dynamic levels that produce changes that are creating a tension with the regime. And the regime has to react to the different stimuli that can come from the two sides, and can, on the other hand, be a factor that try to produce change or to produce dynamics also on both sides of the landscape and the niche. So this complex system, these complex mechanisms, of course, they can't be controlled completely. So you are in this turbulent environment where there are different inputs that can't be controlled. They can't be really controlled. So you can try to support some processes. You can try to allow some changes. Some actors can try to give a direction to some changes, but it's something that not a single actor can really influence. So it needs to be understood as something that needs a certain critical mass to be moved, to be changed. But on the other hand, it is important that each actor is aware of where they stand, and what are the leverage that they have to deal with this system. So it is, of course, from the point of view of an initiative, it's important to understand whether the regime, the city, let's say the city, but also the institutions that you are dealing with are supportive or are a bit behind in terms of the kind of support they can give to a project or to an initiative. So what we have tried to do in this from this point of view is to understand in this context what are the dimensions of the city, the elements of the city that can be enabling and supportive of innovation in a certain context. We have identified these 5 that are the most interesting in terms of the way they can be understood, and the elements they are able to mobilize when set in relationship to new ideas or to innovation pathways. So on one hand, we have the institutional capacity. So it is the capacity of a certain urban institutions to develop policies or to develop to develop instruments to support innovation in their context. There is the cultural vibe, of course, which is the kind of vitality of an urban context in terms of the capability of giving stimuli, providing inputs to creative processes, to be vibrant in terms of the kind of supply they can produce for citizens and also for companies and organizations, to give us access to knowledge, to information, to all these elements. Environmental awareness, which is the level of awareness of the level of decisions and the level of commitment of a certain urban context towards the issues of sustainability, issues that deal with the environment in a different way. So how is the city really engaged in introducing these key issues into the operational functioning of a city in terms of norms, but also in terms of practices that the city supports. Social activism and integration, which is the kind of openness of a city. So how the city is able to deal with diversity, how is the city able to create the conditions for different cultural and different societal groups to be active in the city and to contribute to the city dynamics. And then the entrepreneurial culture, which is the way the city goes by with the support to the entrepreneurial capacity of its citizens, how it is open to new ideas, how it is supportive of the creation of business, how the market within the city functions. So all these elements that can be supportive of new businesses or of the also of the relations and creation of networks between business enterprises within the city. And then the idea is that these dimensions, they do have what we call interfaces. So really the I would say the touch points, but the interfaces, so that the elements that enable the single initiative to get in touch with this dimension, to get really in dialogue with this dimension. So the way in which we can think to contribute to the development of this dimension, or to orient them towards a certain direction. So this is for example, the political arena as an interface that enables to get into the public discourse. So what it is debated in the city, what are the issues that are in the agenda, what are the key, where are also the conflicts, or what so this is an element that can give an idea of what it's really boiling underneath the surface of the city, and what are the issues that are really in the fourth stage of the city discourse. And it's also the way in which institutional innovation can be fostered. So through these debates and through this discourse, that can be also the possibility of creating space for innovation in the policy agenda and in these institutions. So idearium, it's really where the knowledge, information, skills are exchanged in the cities. So where the networks between the city can be able to produce new knowledge and to produce ideas. So it's also related to the way this network interpret the problems that a city has. And so it's both the capacity of a city to understand the complex situation that are present, and the way it can work to solve those problems. The resource pot is, of course, the high level and diversity of resources that can be found in a city, in terms of cognitive resources, financial resources, relational resources, spatial resources. So a city, it's a huge pot of potential components for the development of an idea that can be accessed. The way a city makes available or not this kind of resources, so how easy it is to get access to these resources, it's a key element of the capacity of a city of being supportive or not with new ideas and with so the problem lab, it's easy. So it's all the problems that can be observed in a city, and that can be material for new ideas. So also problems can be seen as opportunities from this point of view. And the market, which is a relevant element, which is the openness of also of the market. It's an important, it's a key issue, because it can be the element that gives an initiative the strength to further scale or to find the resources they need to develop. So here you see just this idea of the interfaces and the role they can have in the different stages of maturity of an initiative. The idea now was to discuss with you where, so how your project, your initiative has already interacted with this dimension, or could be interesting for you to think about if and how the setting a relationship with this dimension could be a factor in the development of your project. So first of all, of course, I know this is it was a very quick.
Maybe we can also ask her to what extent she how to say recognize some of these portion of this framework in the context that they are dealing with.
I want to thank you, because this presentation was really useful to actually put on a paper and give name to certain things that we feel like they're there, but sometimes we don't spend time in labeling or in recognizing. So seeing that makes me think that certain things were already like reassured, some other we need to explore them a bit. So maybe I start a bit with a back story of our project, because I think it's important to understand where it comes from and in which of these this part is taking place. Basically, within PUSH, we were lucky enough to participate in also other stage of Designscape with different projects. And for the prototyping phase, we were not the leader of the project. We were like the side partners of the Bridge project, which was a fictional narrative, a bridge in between Mytilene and Palermo, and to help people, especially youngsters that are part of the lost generation, in acquiring skills for themselves and actually be able to enter in a more proactive way in the job market and start new initiatives. And, my connection is unstable, so if I have to repeat myself, just let me know. During one of the first workshops in Palermo, the guy that participated in this initiative the concept is now Ticket for Change. So their idea was to actually build a journey that would move around Europe, in this case, starting from the connection with Mytilene, create new networks, exchange information, core values, and whatever, and bring back some knowledge to start developing something in Sicily. So why I'm saying that? Because I think that we figured out that was present a sort of cultural vibe and environmental awareness, I would say, already in this group of people, that made us think that maybe there is a desire of people to stay in Sicily, to develop something there, to work more in fields that are not maybe so mainstream right now for the current system that is there. and therefore we wanted to help them to develop this part. When I talk about for example, the cultural vibe, I'm basically from Milan, and I never felt so connected with my region, or at least I give it for granted, maybe. And with young people and seeing how they were totally okay with going abroad for studying, also for working, but then there is a desire of coming back and do something, but they feel like they are not supported institutionally, was making us aware that there was a need somewhere. And the lack of institutional capacity, I wouldn't say that we ignore it in this phase, but it's like not our main goal, because we find it like it's something that we have before to prove our concept of the story, before knocking at the door and ask them, okay, can you support us in that? So we decided to start it, as you were saying, from a niche in which we recognize that there is a cultural vibe that is present of people that want to stay in Sicily. Rising environmental awareness that make them realizing that not everything should be happening in an office, not everything is connected with finances. There are many other jobs that can happen, and they might happen in Sicily. Plus was that the group of youngsters that were involved with us were already like somehow connected with different type of social activism, mainly connected with the movement of Fridays for Future. So they were really involved in this idea. They were also part of the network of global shapers. So they were in this idea of connecting internationally to develop something. And there was a sort of, we call it latent because it was not expressed that way, but there was an entrepreneurial culture. But somehow it feels like it's always something that you have to go abroad or in another city to develop. So starting from these resources that we had, we said, okay, we can try to make a sort of pilot in that sense, actually proving ourselves that the concept that is already ongoing in France, in India, somewhere else, would work also in Sicily, to then be able to institutionalize it. Right now, we didn't even enter in contacting political figure, even though we think that when we have a more mature map of what we are doing, let's say mid-January, we will do that, because as push, we are like in contact with the mayor of Palermo. We usually have a good response from him with the activity that we do in the city. So we don't think that is so far away. But an aspect that two aspects that we think that we are really needing to focus on are, first of all, the financial aspect. Because right now we are in the phase in which, with the guys from France, we are analyzing their business plan and analyzing where their revenue stream was coming up. So understanding these characteristics will make us able to continue the project after the end of Designscape and actually starting this journey in a more sustainable way from every point of view. So far, we are understanding that they had mainly support from the private sector. In France, the private sector, meaning industries, through their CSR commitment, able to sustain financially the project. And we are experiencing now the willingness of the private sector in Sicily of doing the same. We are starting really slow and really low from a low perspective, talking with small industries and small associations that can give us good leads. But so far, we are still searching for it. And then there is something that I've been thinking about since couple of weeks. I'm not sure that is an element that would make a sort of six like side of this shape, but I think somehow it's coming out through conversation. And from your slide from before, I would say that is in the landscape part of the scale. So basically, when the journey in India started and was planned, it has also, it was, yes, of course, an entrepreneurial journey, but among the different packages that you would explore during the journey, there is one connected with the spirituality. That was because in India, the role of spirituality, it's so big that it's something that should be taken into account. In that case, was connected with the spiritual practice, connected with mainly Buddhism and Hinduism, and connected with the idea of doing something good for yourself and for the society. When this concept has been translated to France, this package has been excluded by the people that develop it, because they say that it was not relevant for the context. And right now, especially after a year that we are in a pandemic, I'm wondering how this is still something that we should not take into account. When I talk about spirituality, I would like to say that I'm not connecting with a religious point of view. I'm just saying that I feel like, especially youngsters, are looking for something meaningful to do with their life. So it's not only connected about having a job that fulfills their dreams of wealth. I think it needs to fulfill also other type of aspect of their life. And more, this is emerging as something that we should address somehow. When I say somehow, it's also because I'm not really understanding myself how you would enter in that, because I think it's something that can be expressed in different ways. But in our city to be explored. I that in cities is a place of ideas and new waves are going out. And I think that for maybe decades, the role of spirituality has been more connected with rural areas that were more connected with natural processes and other things. And I would question the idea of actually taking it back to city, either in a more structured way or in a way in which is entering somewhere else. But I don't know how. I'm like sharing a process that is ongoing on, but I have not an answer for that. So I would like to know also your point of view on that. But this is more or less what we are doing and the state of the art of our project so far.
It's just me, but I lost some pieces of the Giulia voices. It was sort of disappearing suddenly, the voice of Giulia, to me.
Yeah, a few times, but I could, okay. I could follow. No, it's really interesting what you're sharing, because it's give us an important feedback on this this reflection that it's also going on with us. Yeah, yeah. I think you have a very so your level of awareness of your relationship with the concepts that you are dealing with, it's really good. So you put a lot of thought in this sphere, and it shows. And I think this aspect of spirituality, which I would probably also refer to culture as a component of the way you can approach different contexts. I think it's key, because it surely plays a role on both sides, on both ends of the initiative. So it's an internal key factor as a motivator, and also as the lens is through you look at the reality outside your organization, and it can play a key role in the way you are perceived, and in the way also institutions can perceive an initiative. So I think it's really important that that a narrative can be generated also about this. And I agree that it's a sensitive element, because of course it's very personal, it's very so it has to be dealt with a lot of care, but it's probably what is missing in many of the innovation that we see, that do not have this kind of depth in the way they deal with society. So maybe for us Western, spirituality has been often translated into a sort of certain civic engagement. So the way we think about ourselves as citizens of a certain city, of a specific city, of citizens of the world. The guys from Friday from Future really are bringing this into the discussion. So it's a key element of the way they perceive the change in society. But I think it will become more and more relevant in the way also we or maybe I'm just hopeful about this, but in the way we look at also at companies and the way they present themselves in terms of relationship to certain values and to certain social dynamics.
If I can say just what came to my mind, like an open discussion, out loud thoughts, it's that what you said, it remembers me also not personal readings, but it means like the person, it's always the same. So the need of the youngsters in India or in Italy or in France it's always the same, not having a meaningful life, a life with a sense and so on. But all this urbanscape is more like related like to operativeness of the initiative. So the resource is really to operate, but the people at the end are the same as in Italy or in India. We are always the same people. It remembers me Gianni Rodari and the seven the power of seven. No, I don't remember, but the seven guys, and remembers also Montessori, when Montessori lived in India for 15, 17 years when she left Italy, and Montessori says that the children it's always the children in everywhere in the world with the same needs and the same. See, they do not change through. Of course, we had so many years of technology and all our context is changing a lot. No, it's not the kids. We always say that the kids of today is not the kids of the yesterday or the kids we were 20, 40 years ago. But I think what you're saying is what also Montessori says is like, no, it's not exactly true. It's true that things change it, but we are always people with need as having meaningful lives and life full of sense and so on. So it's interesting to see that at the end when work the way it's working in India and you taking out of the context and putting something else, if it's true that they lost this spiritual dimension in France, because it's always is like Ilaria saying, civic engagement. It's true that in a occidental culture, civic engagement fulfill our lives. It's true that it always gives us some sense of what we are doing. It's the way we fulfill. Maybe we miss something else. It's not enough. Or we are like hiding some deep personal emptiness that we have with this civic engagement, but maybe it's not enough. Probably it's true that needs to work in another dimension.
I really think that for new generations is, and I see now really, basically children, people that are now 11 or 12, that it's almost going to become their new spirituality is going to translate in terms of climate awareness and care for the environment, because it's going to have to replace the gods up to a certain point, or for some people, because we have lost that role, or like in some countries that role is becoming weaker, the one of like the spirituality funneled through a god or a godlike figure. And these children are coming to a world in which we are going to be on a climate crisis, basically, maybe not now, but in 20 years. And and kind of like all their civic effort is going to be perceived that had to be funneled to that. And I don't know, at the same time, the more technology we have, the more it seems that we idealize the connection to nature. So I wonder, like, how much is that environmentalism consciousness going to become their new spiritualism or something, the connection to something bigger, that it's going to be the same earth we are destroying. So
but I think it's not enough. I think the loss of the sense of our lives is linked to the detached from nature cycle. So climate change is more like a civic engagement. And this is not any
but I think there could be a positive side effect to that what it so the basic need is a sense of belonging and a sense of connection. So that this fighting for the earth, the very basic concept of it, what gives back is this sense of being interconnected and being part of a whole system, which I think could be healthy in the way it could change the perspective. So we have been taught of, and we have been brought up thinking about individual needs and the way we can grow as individuals. This element of really dealing with the big climate issue, so make us really, really small, and fosters the need of being connected, so that you need to act together, otherwise it's completely useless. I think this is something that has a new way of thinking about civic engagement, and also a certain spiritual element to it.
I think all this climate change awareness, it's a side effect of this market-oriented society that we are creating. So,
but that's us. But that's what I mean. That I think in 20 years, the children that are children then, that's going to be a different context and scenario. So maybe I just went a bit too far, but I mean, like, now it's true. It's market. It's almost like a result of our own capitalism. That I can be or not climate aware. But when the situation is a real crisis, I mean, we love the hero story, but the hero needs a really big challenge to conquer. And when basically the only reason of existence of us is not to perish because there's big floods and whatever. Because I don't know, from a science point of view, this is not going to take that long, right? Like things like uncontrolled rains or big floods. So it's not that our lives are going to change. It's not like a dystopian thing, but maybe when it's slightly more visible, those kids that grow up in that context have that as the purpose of their not of their existence, but like an inherent drive. The same way that maybe for your generation was basically to prosper, because the whole, at least Europe, was coming from from a really industry change, the race of a way more comfortable middle class and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. But I was just thinking, like, how that's the link to also to the kids that you guys are working with in Ticket to Change, because in places like Sicily, they've just seen how society continued without them, or almost to a certain point. Like, yeah, what you said, like all the mainstream jobs out there are meant to not be done in places like Sicily, right? So it's like, move to Milan and everybody was going to work on the same cubicles. So yeah, I'm interested, how these young people in those places feel that they are maybe, if they're a bit proud of the roots and stuff like that, like how do they feel that they are being taken away something by this new way of working in cities?
Yeah, but what we were saying also before about this idea that you sense there is an entrepreneurial will and capacity, but the assumption is that I have to go away to exploit that, and then maybe I will be able to come back. So this is also something that could be an element of their thinking about the development of their life path. So how can I be the change there instead of going away to change myself, but then it stays in my personal experience and it doesn't become an element of the change that I can produce in the place that I love and I would like to come back to.
That we felt is like we were talking especially with a guy that is in IT, and he was able to name you, for example, 100 companies that he want to work with in the area of Milan, Turin, or whatever, and maybe couple of them in Sicily. But that's not true that there are existing only two. Is that the one that are portrayed as mainstream, there are two. When we started to do a research together, because in that case was also like happening in a more private realm, he figured out that there were existing things that they were out of his framework just because they were not presented as successfully as they actually are, or because automatically he was neglecting something that way could exist there. So he was in his Google bar, he was already searching IT company Milan and not Sicily and not Palermo. So this is also a bit of a stigma that we wanted to break, because it's true that some certain activities are not visible, but that certain times activities are not so visible, but by making working so badly, by building networks, we think that we could give visibility more to these realities that are happening. So this is what is somehow in our power to do.
Yeah.
And a network can be built by traveling together and discover those activities while we are doing it together and put them in contact. And something that we found really true even in our profession, that after meeting someone in person, then there is a new level of trust that we build, and that can continue toward professional relationship and starting of something else. So these are for us the key element that we recognize that they were missing. We are not super sure that we are fulfilling all their requests, but that's a beginning. And as we were saying at the beginning, the design approach, it's in that sense. We start like targeting certain element. We see how it goes. We see if we have to rework something. If everything works, then we add something more. And bit by bit, we will try to develop what is in our idea, the development of this journey in Sicily.
Very interesting.
Yes.
But you work with youngsters, no? From 16 to 26. Oh.
Yeah. Right now, 18, because we would say that the target group is young entrepreneurs. While we say that is also because if you are 45, but you never developed an idea before and it's your first experience, then you're a young entrepreneurs that can join
Okay.
the
There's
tour.
hope also for us then, okay.
For this, the
We
new
don't want to, we don't want to exclude anyone based on age, but we say at least 18, so it releases a certain responsibility from our shoulders, because if you have to bring around kids that are not, they cannot travel by themselves, it's a responsibility that we don't want to take. And in terms of age, we are more asking for like the idea why you want to join. On the experience of the French part, they say that usually yearly they are receiving around 5,000 requests to participate for 200 places. So then you have really to like decide who is really motivated, because it's like an intense. I mean, so far, what we planned is like 10 days around 5 cities in Sicily. And in every city, you stay 2 days. And in those 2 days, you are meeting the people that are doing something there from an entrepreneurial perspective. But also you are constantly with mentor and facilitator that are helping you to develop your business idea. So there are a lot of activity to happen. You don't go there because you want to have a touristic tour around Sicily. It's really because you have an idea that you want to develop, and you do somehow a sprint for your idea to see if it works, what can be helpful for you, this kind of thing.
And Giulia, you were now, what status you have as a cooperative? Or so do can you get funded by 5 per Mille, non so, social responsibility?
Discussing right now.
Scusa, sorry.
Discussing right now with also the French partners, because what is happening right now, so under the framework of Designscape, we are 2 separate associations. Push is an association non-for-profit, so we can receive donation, and Ticket for Change is an association for profit and for non-profit. They have both hats. Good. What we are discussing and is in like in the making is there are 2 possibilities. The first one is that Ticket for Change France will have the big umbrella and have still under their framework, meaning that I try to cut the video and see if you can.
We don't hear you, Giulia.
We lost.
No.
No, Giulia, we lost you completely. Is it an idea to try to restart, or I don't know what's best, honestly, with dealing with internet?
Yeah, we can ask her. If
I don't. Yeah, I think she's right.
she went.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Next time, WhatsApp.
Interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting, the case.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
And it has a lot of complexity. So every time she joins a session is actually a really good case to discuss on all the topics we bring. So yeah.
It's a good sparring partner.
Eccoci.
You're back.
Yeah, I'll stop my video now.
No, I was saying that right now, under the umbrella of Designscape, we are separate identity, like Push and I see you again, Frozen. So I wonder if you can hear me.
No, we turn off the.
We hear you.
The
Yes.
video.
We hear you.
My video so I can get more speed. Sorry, I will repeat myself. Right now, under Designscape, we are treating the project as two separate projects. So since Push is a non-profit, we can actually gather donation for this specific project and we are able to process them. But in these weeks, meaning this week and the next, have some operational meeting with the group from France in which they have to clarify, because we already asked that, if they're interested either in continuing the experience in Sicily as ticket one in France and one in Sicily, or if they want to have a sort of spin-off of the project. And in that, I mean, we have in principle the agreement with our colleague in Push that they would also be interested in profit dedicated to this project. The tour, but is still in process of deciding what is going to happen. And we are already talking about it right now because we really want to start building a sort of framework in which this project can, of course, continue after the end of the Urbanscape project will officially end. So
Julia, we still, I think probably everybody also experienced a bit of moments where we could not hear you, but yeah, but overall we heard something.
I think this is interesting too as a development of, in terms of process of development of this initiative. So it's really interesting to follow up and get to know what will happen.
Going to take a decision, I think we will also communicate it with the consortium of Designscape to understand if there is a way in which there is some financial binding that we have to make or other things. So for sure, we will keep you informed about what's going on with the project.
Mm-hmm.
And Julia, just another final question, because we are running out of time. How you promote your initiative? Which are your channels of promotion, or you get linked to any event in the schools, where not the schools, but some educational events, cultural?
Right now, we didn't start it promoted yet because the struggle with understanding the financial future of the thing made us waiting a bit. So we are putting out like a back office decision made out of understanding the financial part, the business plan, and to set in place all the later to start in February and March with the launch event. Our Designscape adventure will officially end in March with an event that launched the idea of starting the process. And then the first trip will happen in July. So all the part connected with the communication, yes, finger crossed, and all the part with the communication will officially start in March, and connecting until July with a full-time person that will take care of it. But right now we didn't start in that sense. We have private communication with possible future sponsors or people that want to get on board in the idea, in the part in which we are still building the idea, but is on a private level. Calls, the mails, nothing that is public so far.
Okay, thank you.
So I would say if you have questions for us, we are available to you. So we can either discuss them now, or you can also send us an email, and we can also think about dealing with them next week. If you will be able to join also for the next seminar. I think it was, for us, it was really interesting and useful. I hope it was the same for you too.
Yeah, it was really useful. Unfortunately, next week, I'm not going to be able to participate because we have a workshop already organized. Okay. So in that case, I would like to ask Alberto or Alicia if they can maybe send us the recording or a minute of the meeting. So in case I can follow up and contact you if there is any question. But so far, everything was really, really clear. So thank you for that.
Thank you for being with us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Giulia.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Yes, thanks a lot.